I woke up the morning after my surgery to find my husband and my mother-in-law in the room. It was a sorry sight. I had been on a steep ladder at work and I fell off. My husband looked at me with concern. "What are you doing? You're just a part-timer. Why not leave that to the full-timers?" I couldn't believe the audacity. "Is this another one of your meddling ways? Can you not talk to me like that? I have to stay in the hospital for a while, so sorry for the inconvenience. Oh, speaking of, I just transferred this month's share of expenses to the bank account. I usually contribute to household expenses with my part-time earnings, but now I'm stuck here. I can't even cook, let alone shop. So, I figured at least I can give them money, but my mother-in-law turned it down. We don't need your measly earnings. Can you stop making that I'm doing my part face?" I had no such intention or not. That's the face they thought I was making. "We don't need you. I'm here. Besides, how much can a part-timer really make?" "It's not a lot, but it's enough to help with groceries." "Sure, whatever." My mother-in-law's unyielding attitude started to make me angry. I was the one hurt, but neither of them had shown any concern. Then my husband, let's call him Joe, said something unbelievable. "Frankly, you don't need to come back after discharge. You're just a liability, and it's a waste of time and money. Don't expect me to pay your hospital bills." He is right. It's your own fault you're injured. We're the ones who'll have to shoulder the burden, so you should pay us. Why do the useless ones always cost so much? With that, Joe and my mother-in-law left the room. They despised any form of expense, so it's no wonder they were angry about me being in the hospital, worrying more about money than about me. I've started to think I shouldn't have married in the first place. A few hours later, "Oh, Miss Gwen, long time no see. Is that you, Ginny? What brings you here?" "I heard you got hurt, so I had to come visit." "Just kidding. But I did hear from a former colleague that you're injured, so I took the time to come see you." "Wow, you didn't have to. Aren't you busy?" "True. When I got headhunted a few years back, I was thinking of quitting because I wasn't used to the new environment. But, thanks to your advice, I've come this far. I'll never forget that. Thank you so much. You're making it sound like a big deal." The person who came to visit me is a former colleague from the company I used to work at named Mr. James. Everyone, myself included, called him Jimmy. After leaving the company, I would occasionally meet up with old colleagues, but Jimmy had been reassigned and stopped coming. Apparently, he was headhunted by another company and resigned. Back when I was still working at the company, he didn't strike me as particularly competent. I guess he found his calling somewhere and turned into a professional. But I didn't expect him to go out of his way to visit me in the hospital. Coming after seeing Joe and my mother-in-law, his kindness felt particularly warm. I was still frustrated from what Joe had said to me earlier, so I vented to Jimmy. "Really? Your husband sounds quite harsh. This isn't a joke. I'm genuinely frustrated and angry." "Well, I don't understand. Where does your husband see incompetence? The Miss Granite I know is far from incompetent. She was a talented worker. You were greatly missed when you left the company. Work and marriage are different, you know? Fair point. I've never met your husband. Is he younger than you?" "Yes, he is. That's why he's so attached to his mother. They're always together. Instead of defending me, he joins in with my mother and complains about me. It's so annoying. Thanks though, Jimmy. Talking to you lightened my mood a bit. Once I'm better, let's go out for a meal and invite others too." "Absolutely. I'll come by again when I have some time." And with that, Jimmy left the hospital room. He's like a close female friend in some ways. He is the same age as my husband, but he's so much more mature in what he says and does. The difference between them is indescribable. Well, I chose Joe, so it's also my fault. Later, I began rehabilitation during my hospital stay. All I could think about was wanting to go home as soon as possible. But if I go home, Joe and my mother-in-law will be there. If I stay in the hospital, it's far less stressful. 2 weeks later, Joe comes to visit again, bringing my mother-in-law with him. "What do you want? Didn't you say I shouldn't bother coming home if I'm incompetent?" "Yeah, here you are visiting me again. Hey, aren't you happy I came to see you? Frankly, if you're gonna complain, you don't have to visit at all." "Oh, is that so? Why are you so angry?" "I haven't even said anything yet. See, that's why our child acts this way with you. You always have this cold demeanor. Consider other people's feelings for once. That's why you end up hospitalized. Here we go again. Whenever Joe is criticized, my mother-in-law jumps in with her supportive fire. Even though it's a conversation between husband and wife, things never move forward when she chimes in. That's why I stay quiet when my mother-in-law intervenes. Arguing back would only lead to more counter-arguments, and I'd be the one blamed in the end. This time, I was patiently waiting for the storm to pass, but it showed no sign of stopping. Still, he started talking about Joe's girlfriend. My son was thinking of marrying someone else before I knew, but they broke up over a trivial argument. He would have made amends if he had apologized, but his pride is so high. He said he would never apologize because it was her fault. Look, it really was her fault. I did nothing wrong. Sure, she had a good personality and was attractive. In hindsight, maybe I should have apologized then. I would not be married to someone useless like you. See, that's what I've been saying from the beginning. Are you sure you want to be with her? I always knew it was a bad idea. This proves I was right. It's just a fluke that I happened to choose an unsuitable partner. This time, I'll be more careful in choosing someone with similar sensibilities. The conversation was unbearable. I'm not the patient type to keep quiet forever. Moreover, this guy just mentioned choosing another partner. It seemed like he had thoughts of divorcing me. While it would be a dream come true for me too. Frustrated, I let loose my anger. I expressed my anger towards Joe and my mother-in-law. They had a lot to say, but it was just ridiculous. They even went as far as calling me an unsuitable partner, but they weren't even good enough to be called that themselves. At first, I thought Joe was a decent person, but it turns out he's just a mama's boy. And his mom is so fond of him, why don't they just live together forever? No one would end up with an unsuitable partner like me. After saying all of this, I felt a mix of regret and relief. It was amusing to see their expressions change from surprise to tension as I spoke. Who did they think they were talking to? Where were their parents? What was with their attitude towards someone who was hospitalized? They sure knew how to run their mouths. Oh, Mom, there it is. They were quick to call others incompetent, but were they so perfect themselves? It must be nice to be perfect at work and at home. They were really something. When I sarcastically praised my mother-in-law, her face turned even redder. How dare she act so smug? Who did she think she was? I was the patient here, not her. Just then, Joe intervened. "Okay, enough is enough. From where I stand, you're way more incompetent than my mom. She raised me all by herself while holding down a job. Could you do that?" I wouldn't know. I've never been in that situation. But if I were a parent, I would teach my kids not to look down on others. It's not cool to call people incompetent, especially someone who's hospitalized. I see. Well, it's clear we've never been a good match. That's why we're getting a divorce. Fine by me, I replied. You were talking about being cautious with your next partner, right? That implies we're done. I wouldn't want to spend my life with you or your mother anyway. Huh? You do realize you'll be financially unstable if we divorce, right? How are you going to afford these hospital bills, let alone your living expenses? I got injured at work, so I'll get workers' compensation. And after that, I have enough savings. Joe had a point. Even if I plan on finding a job immediately after the divorce, there's no guarantee that I'll find one quickly. Plus, it will take time to see any income. The situation isn't looking good. I need to figure something out before it's too late. I had been vocal until now, but the moment I stopped talking, they took the opportunity to go on the offensive. So you haven't thought it through. Tough break, but what's said is said. We both want this divorce. If you promise to obey me like a housemaid from now on, I might reconsider, Joe's mom chimed in. Absolutely not happening, I replied. Can you please leave? You're polluting the air. You're a piece of work. Don't say I didn't warn you. Joe and his mother left the room sneering. I have to find a job soon. My current workplace won't cut it. I'll go anywhere that offers full-time employment. Just a few minutes later, Joe returned to the room. He what? No, my boss was around. Just let me hide here until he's out of sight. Come to think of it, Joe had been complaining about his current boss a lot lately. Apparently, he had been enjoying a slack job until this new boss came and shook up the department. Why is he coming this way? Could he be next door? Next door, just then there's a knock at the hospital room door. Joe shakes his head at me. I find his discomfort quite amusing. With a cheerful tone, I say, "Come on in." To my surprise, it's Jimmy who walks in. "Miss Net, I had some free time, so I thought I'd come visit you." "Wait, what are you doing here?" "Oh, Mr. James, good to see you." Oh, you must be Miss Grant's husband." "Yes, that's him." "Did I introduce you to Ash, Jimmy?" "I think this is your first time meeting." "No, actually, we see each other every day. He's my subordinate right now." "What, really?" It turns out, of all people, Jimmy is Joe's boss. Totally unexpected, yet it strikes me as an opportunity for a counterattack. "So Jimmy, how's Joe's performance at work?" "Hard to say in front of Miss Granite. He has areas for improvement, but the fact that he's sticking to it is admirable. We had drinks the other day, and he told me he respects me, so my expectations are high. When I look at Joe, he's staring at the floor, fists clenched. He's probably thinking, don't say anything." So I decide to go ahead and speak. "You know, my husband mentioned something about his boss. Turns out that was you, Jimmy. But I wonder if I should say this." "Go ahead." "No worries. Hey, Jimmy, my new boss is so incompetent, he doesn't get me at all. I'm only drinking with him to gain his favor. I'll bring him down someday. I recorded all our conversations. He won't make a single mistake, and so on. Sorry if I had known it was you, Jimmy. I would have told you so much sooner." Upon hearing this, Jimmy's expression changes and he shoots Joe a piercing glare. "No, you're wrong, Mr. James. This is all a lie. Miss Granite, would you like to hear a recorded conversation I have that says otherwise?" "Yes, please." I didn't play the audio for Jimmy, where Joe was complaining non-stop. "Wow, I see. Thank you, Miss Granite. I never thought he'd be saying stuff like this." No need for me to cover for him anymore. What? What are you talking about?" "You've been swiping office supplies, haven't you?" "What? How did you know?" "We have surveillance cameras around the office. Maybe you thought no one checks them." There have been complaints about supplies disappearing or running out quickly. When we investigated, we found out you were the one taking them. I was planning to question you about it soon, but now I'll just report this to the boss." "Wait, what happens to me then?" "That's for the boss to decide. I don't know if you'll even be able to stay in your current department or the company for that matter." "You can't. Oh, by the way, Miss Granite, how about working for our company? We'd be better off with you than him." "Really? Is that okay?" "It's fine. We'll likely have an opening soon." Jimmy turned to face Joe. "I'd be delighted to have you under me, Joe. I'll make sure not to get too familiar with you." "Don't worry about it." "You scum." Joe was questioned by the company about the missing supplies and found to be reselling them. He was effectively fired. He was questioned by the police and is now being supported by his mother-in-law's pension. Mother-in-law's pension. Life is tough. Even putting food on the table is a challenge. As for me, I started working under Jimmy. Although it took a bit to get back into the swing of things, I quickly adapted and became a valuable member of the team. Work is really enjoyable, I guess, as long as I have my job. Life is good. If I ever consider remarrying, I think I'll consult with someone first. The episode with Joe and my mother-in-law came to a close, but life goes on. I focused on my work and building a stable future. A few months later, Jimmy and I developed a strong professional relationship. We worked well together and he became a mentor of sorts. I appreciated the support he provided both personally and professionally. One day after a successful project, Jimmy invited me to join him for dinner to celebrate. As we sat in a cozy restaurant, he brought up a surprising topic. "Miss Granite, I've been meaning to ask, how are things with your personal life now? Any developments since we last spoke?" I chuckled. Well, after the whole ordeal with Joe, I decided to focus on myself and my career. No rush for anything else. Jimmy nodded thoughtfully. "That's a wise approach. Take your time. You never know what life might bring." Over the next year, my career continued to flourish. I took on challenging projects, received promotions, and built a strong network within the company. It seemed that leaving the toxic environment with Joe had been the right decision. One day, as I was working on a particularly demanding project, Jimmy called me into his office. "Miss Granite, I have some exciting news. There's an opportunity for an overseas assignment, and I believe you're the perfect candidate for it." I was both surprised and intrigued. An overseas assignment would be a significant step in my career. After careful consideration, I accepted the opportunity. The next few years were a whirlwind of new experiences and challenges. I thrived in the international work environment, and my skills continued to grow. Occasionally, I would receive updates about Joe's struggles back home, but I headlong moved on from that chapter of my life. During my time abroad, I met new people, formed lasting friendships, and even entertained the idea of a new romantic relationship. Life had taken unexpected turns, and I embraced the changes with an open heart. As the overseas assignment came to an end, I found myself contemplating the next chapter of my life. The experiences and growth I had undergone during this period were invaluable. I had become a stronger, more resilient person. Upon returning to my home country, I decided to visit my family. It had been years since I had seen them, and I wanted to share my experiences with them. To my surprise, my parents were proud of the person I had become and supported my decisions. As I reconnected with old friends, I also discovered that Joe and my mother-in-law had moved on with their lives. The challenges they faced had led to some self-reflection, and it seemed they were making efforts to improve their situations. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that sometimes life presents unexpected challenges, but with determination and perseverance, we can overcome them and grow as individuals. Sometimes life takes unexpected turns, leading us to places we never thought possible. The key is to adapt, learn, and grow from each experience. With a renewed sense of purpose and a wealth of experiences behind us, we eagerly embrace the next adventure that life has in store.